All right, we are live. Smash Mouth Sports. I'm your host, as always, Preston Bailey. With me, as always, Cam Vieira, and we are honored and excited to have our special guest, Adam Kaufman from iHeartRadio. Adam, how you doing?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Good to have you, Adam.
Absolutely. We're going to get into some NBA talk. Now, I understand, in addition to leaving the Sports Hub, joining the big conglomerate iHeartMedia, you're also a Celtics beat writer. Is that right? Or beat host, I should say?
So I host a podcast called Celtics Beat, which is part of the CLNS media family. And so, yeah, just among the many things that keep me busy, for sure.
Perfect. So let's get into it. I'm an outsider. I'm in Tampa, so I have no vested interest like Cam and you guys do with the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
So from an outsider's perspective, what is wrong with the Celtics? Why are they not hitting that top two seed like everybody's been expecting?
I mean, it's sort of a wide-ranging question, I guess, right? I mean, this particular – I mean, you can go back through the years and some of the missteps, bad luck, and things along those lines over the last few years that have sort of led them to exactly where they are right now from where maybe people thought they would be as a perennially contending team a few years ago when they obviously had a young, developing, not yet all-star, but maybe it was on the horizon, Jaylen Brown and a 19-year-old Jason Tatum, who today, by the way, is his 23rd birthday and certainly another all-star and looking like a budding superstar in this league. Some would put him in that classification already. And there was just this treasure trove of assets, and whether it was picks or cap space, what have you. But, a lot of things obviously didn't pan out. The Kyrie Irving trade didn't work out for the long term. Gordon Hayward's signing didn't work out. Kemba Walker's signing right now is, very much in question because of the knee injury that seems like it's going to hamper him for the duration of his career. And, this team this year anyway, just sort of putting things where we are in the moment because they have underachieved. They're a game over 500. They've got two really, really good young players in Tatum and Brown. And they've got some other potentially foundational pieces, whether that's Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Peyton Pritchard, depending on what you think of a Romeo Langford or an Aaron Nesmith, but they're not there yet as far as being a contending team. And they do have, some things in their back pocket, like the giant trade player exception, that historically huge deal they were able to get, the TPE from Charlotte in dealing away Gordon Hayward when ultimately he was going to leave anyway. But it's now a question of whether or not they're going to use it. And if they do, who are they going to look to bring in to put them over the hump? Because right now they're just, much as I'd love to be biased, they're just not there in that same conversation with the Nets, with the Sixers, with the Bucks, some of the top tier teams in the Eastern Conference.
What do you think they have to do? Do you think they have to trade Kemba Walker in a package deal with Tristan Thompson? Should they blow this team up and start over? What is just your gut instinct?
Well, there's no blowing it up. It's they don't need a rebuild situation. They need a reworking or a restructure potentially, around some of the pieces they have. I mean, again, you have your foundational pieces in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and those two guys are guys that, to me are borderline untouchable. If anybody is untouchable on this team, it's those two guys, because, if you're talking about dealing either of them, then you're talking about, okay, what superstar player, established championship winning superstar could we obtain from somewhere else, short of that. And even then, potentially, because there were plenty of people that didn't want to deal either of them for Anthony Davis or for James Harden or for any of these guys. There's that much belief in their growth, and they're going to be around. They're under contract for a while. I mean, this is your future. Your future is now, but this is your future, those two guys. So around them, I mean, obviously they need stuff. Now, trading away Kemba Walker, that's a lot easier to say than it is in reality, because I think that, unfortunately, like this is no commentary on him as a person. He is an incredible guy and teammate and leader and person and humanitarian and all of these things. And
he
still
checks all those boxes, right?
Yeah, and still, as we've seen lately, a very good player as well. I mean, look what he's done his last few games when he's gotten into a groove and shaken off some of the rust and seemingly been a bit healthy out there. He can still be an all-star player in this league, which he was last year before this chronic knee injury, which he dealt with a lot of the time in Charlotte and has been a real problem over the course of this last year. He is someone that you need to manage him. Unfortunately, he's on a minutes restriction. He can't
load management.
Yeah, well, but not even in the Kawhi Leonard sort of way. It's in a real, like, this guy's got a significant knee injury, and he's going to miss half the season, and you hope he's going to be ready and healthy for the playoffs, but you just don't know. And even if he is out there, you don't know what he's going to give you. So honestly, with that contract making $30+ million a year, I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of takers that would want him, even if you did dangle him out there, as reportedly Danny Ainge has done anyway.
Cam, do you want to weigh in on that? I know you got some strong takes on this.
Well, no, that contract's an albatross. It absolutely is. It's around their neck. It's going to weigh him down. And look, Kemba's still a very good player, as we've seen in these last couple of games when he's had some good games, and they've won, finally, starting to get the 3 wins in a row. But above all else with the Celtics, I just think if Kemba is healthy, he's your third guy, and you're a good team. Your bench is awful. and the great teams in this league, they have great benches too. And now it's easier to attract guys to play in those roles when you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, or Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, or Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden. But Danny Ainge's failure to put a proper bench together, even just adequate role players, is what's going to kill this team at the end of the day. The drafting has been bad outside of the lottery. It hasn't gotten much better in terms of trades and free agents. It's just the bench is a disgrace. There's no other way to say it. It's a disgrace.
So I wouldn't agree that drafting has been bad. I think Danny Ainge,
outside of the water,
he's had his.
Here we go. Sure. Yeah, let's get into it.
Oh yeah, we're gonna battle. Yeah, I mean, he's certainly had his misses, and who short of like R.C. Buford hasn't, right? I mean, for the most part, people have misses. It's a crapshoot drafting in the NBA or any sport for that matter. I think Ainge, while he gets celebrated for taking Tatum and Brown, as he should, because those were not obvious picks at the time, by the way. I mean, you can go back, you can look at where Tatum was selected or Brown was selected. There were plenty of people that
wanted Buddy Hield, Jamal Murray.
Yeah, Chris Dunn. There were a lot of guys that were available at number 3 who you could have argued at the time made some sense. And as far as when Tatum was selected, I mean, don't forget, everybody wanted Markelle Fultz.
It was Fultz.
How dare you trade the number 1 pick down to number 3 and miss out on Markelle Fultz? And, Ainge all along, he knew who he wanted at
great move.
He said Tatum would have been his number 1 pick if he had stayed at number 1. So, it was Tatum or bust. That was, how he viewed it. And obviously that has worked out. But as far as even Marcus Smart was a good pick, at number 6. Is he a superstar? He's not, but he was a good pick at number 6 for what he is and what he means to this team. And obviously he's on an incredibly team-friendly contract. Peyton Pritchard's looking like he could be the steal of the draft, or one of them right now. It's very early, obviously. It's way too early to, especially in a pandemic-shortened year and altered year, to pass judgment on Aaron Nesmith. Romeo Langford maybe can play. We just haven't really seen him on the floor because of the injury, which, they knew about, or one of the injuries anyway that he's dealt with. They knew about at the time they drafted him. And you could certainly argue there were other guys they could have drafted at the time that would have made more sense. Robert Williams is looking like he's starting to reach some potential, and obviously that was a late 20s pick, so he could be a foundational piece, hopefully, if he plays more, if he can actually get on the floor more than the 15 or 16 17 minutes that he's playing a game. I want to see him out there for 20 to 25 on average. And you can just go back through Ainge's tenure, and I know you're talking about obviously recent past, and it's hard to ignore. Like, was Grant Williams a miss? Maybe. Was Shemi Ojale a miss? Maybe. Was I don't even know. Like, there are a bunch.
Giddens, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're going back a little bit farther, obviously, with a guy like Giddens, but there are plenty of guys in the last few years that you can say, man, I wish we had so and so instead of that guy. But unfortunately, there are a lot of other teams that feel that same way. I think Ainge's drafting gets overly criticized by people who are just generally fed up with some of the other moves or non-moves, or failure to. Gary Washburn of the Globe was on my podcast recently, and I thought he put it well. Ainge's biggest flaw certainly is not trades. He trades very well. It's, for the most part, he handles himself well in free agency as well. He's had some bad luck. With regard to the draft, it's not even so much like, oh, this guy drafts poorly. It's that there's a refusal to admit a mistake. He hangs on to guys too long. He hangs on to guys too long, like a Shemi Ojale. He has hung on to him too long, just because it's, I don't want to admit that, hey, maybe this guy was a miss. So I'm going to give him that, that next contract as well, so it doesn't necessarily look as bad. And
Adam, do you feel that Danny tries to get a little too fancy? From an outsider's perspective, I feel like he tries to get too fancy because he got all these picks and all this collateral from the Nets. At the end of the day, you got a couple good guys out of it, Tatum and Brown, but it's not like you got this super stacked roster.
I know
at the end of the day, he made a lot of good moves, and he gets the plus. He gets a lot of pluses and a lot of carry the 3 and add the 4. But at the end of the day, it looks like a long algebra equation, but it comes down to wins.
Sure. And this team, no question, is not where at the time of the Nets trade everyone hoped it would be. Certainly not at the start of that 17-18 season with
Kyrie and Horford
and Horford all being here, and obviously Brown drafted and Tatum coming in, and you go back just over the last few years, like where that team looked like it was positioned to go. Again, perennial contender. Clearly, that's not where they are. There have been missteps and again bad luck as part of it, and every team has bad luck. So I'm not using that as an excuse. It's just part of the equation. There have been there's been a failure to reach expectations, and ownership on down would admit that. And to your guys' point about poor roster construction, especially that bench. I mean, credit Danny for this. He owns it. Every interview that he does, he comes under fire and he says, "Look, it's on me. If we're not playing well, that's on me. I put this roster together. Don't blame Brad Stevens, the coach. You can put
let's blame Brad Stevens,
want, but it's more on me as the architect of this thing. And yeah, I mean, there is a reason why we are at the point where it, even though it has felt for years like, hey, Danny Ainge, Brad Stevens, these guys, like Celtics being as loyal as they are, like they have jobs for life. Well, maybe they shouldn't. And I'm not calling for anyone's head right now. I don't think either one should lose their job right now. But obviously, it's Boston we're talking about. It's not like you're in Tampa.
We're impatient.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Orlando. It's just happy.
You're not going to bash my Orlando Magic, are you?
Well, we're happy to be here, right? We're happy to get, let's compete and get into the 8th seed or get into the play-in tournament. Let's just, let's get some.
Okay, so let's bring it up. I got to ask: is Brad Stevens
title mentality?
Is Brad Stevens on the hot seat? Because I keep hearing he's this hot young coach, and he's going to make the Celtics great again. But they're downtrending. They're going the wrong way.
I don't know that I would say they're going the wrong way. If you want to say they're kind of leveling, I mean, keep in mind, like Brad Stevens and his players, not all Brad, obviously, like they've gone to the East Finals 3 out of the last 4 years. That's not an easy thing to accomplish.
And twice lost to LeBron, right?
Right, and twice lost to LeBron. And
I mean, we can spin it positive, but they're also 2 games away from 8th seed and borderline missing the playoffs. So there's a lot of things
aren't they
that could go a lot of ways.
Seed, I think right now, let's boil it down to this, right? Let's just look at your question on the surface. Is Brad Stevens on the hot seat? He's not. Fact is, he's not. He just got an extension in August. He's got like 6 years left on his contract. Brad Stevens is in no way, shape, or form on the hot seat.
He's treated like Belichick. He really is.
Brad Stevens is treated like Belichick. Wow.
If you want to look at him and say that he is overhyped, overrated, that's a different conversation. Should he be fired? The answer is absolutely not. No.
Okay, so let's look at this objectively. Let's pretend we're all in the Celtics room.
Okay.
We got to blame somebody.
I don't think that would be objective then.
We've got to blame Danny Ainge. We've got to blame Stevens, or we've got to blame the players. Somebody's got to, who gets the blame?
Ainge first, because he put the roster together.
Correct.
He's right about that. He built the thing. Brad is doing what he can with what he's got to work with. Now, if you want to come at Brad as well as the players, because this is on both sides of that equation, and Danny has nothing to do with this, unless it's again, a personality trait flaw of a player, which in some cases maybe it could be, is the biggest thing, maybe Cam agrees, the biggest thing to me about the failures or lack of execution this season, singularly this season, the disappointments of what has made this team so difficult to watch at times this year, is the lack of effort and heart and passion and giveaway that
to me that sounds like coaching.
You're so used to seeing with Brad Stevens' teams. He is renowned around here and at Butler, for that matter, going to multiple national title games for getting his players to play above their heads, to play above their level. And that certainly didn't happen in that first year with second year with Kyrie Irving. The first year, he was hurt a lot of that, and obviously Hayward was hurt. That second year, that 18-19 season, was a colossal disappointment because they had so much talent, like way too much talent. You want to talk about a bench of like the inferior bench they've got right now, that bench was everything, man. Like you had Marcus Morris, you had Terry Rozier, like you had Marcus Smart, you had all sorts of guys on that bench. Gordon Hayward at times, you had guys on that bench who could absolutely contribute. There was ego, there was infighting, there were problems to the makeup of that team. With this team, I think these guys get along. They like each other. And yes, there are deficiencies with regard to talent, but the biggest problem with this team is heart a lot of the time. They're just not out there caring enough about playing hard. Exactly. And that to me, I don't care. Like, I don't care who you root for or what sport you root for and follow. That's number one as a fan. That's number one. Go out there and just give a crap. That's what you care. Like those Brad Stevens teams, his first couple teams, they weren't good teams. The first one won 25 games. The second one won like 40 or 41. They weren't good teams. They were certainly not contenders. But what they were teams that went out there and played hard every day and just cared. And for that reason, they were fun to watch. At least as fun as a team with so little talent could be. But this team right now, you want to see more of that. It's just like give us the rest of the season's worth of what we've seen these last 3 games. Everybody will be thrilled around here. And you'll get a nice playoff run. But we don't know if we're going to get that because you get just this Jekyll and Hyde C's team this year.
Are you concerned? Are you concerned just the lack of size? Outside of Tristan Thompson, they just don't have the Joel Embiid, the Rudy Gobert. They don't have the big man. I know it's going small ball, but it doesn't look like this team is meshing. The last couple games, yes, but I'm saying overall, they don't have the down-low presence that other teams have.
Yeah, and we're talking about a team that goes with the double big, right? Tristan Thompson, Daniel Tyson, the starting 5, and Robert Williams coming off the bench. I'm not concerned per se. I mean, talking about guarding, obviously, the guys. I
know, but let's be real though. Thompson and Tice, I know you guys like them, but I'm not in love with either one of those guys. As a championship caliber team. Sure. Those are not the 2 bigs you want.
Well, I mean, I guess the question is this: like, their biggest problem when they went down in the conference finals last year to Miami was they had no answer ever for Bam Adebayo. Do they right now? Probably not.
Robert Williams might be.
He might be. And Tristan Thompson certainly has a lot more physicality and toughness than anyone they had on the roster in terms of bigs last year. But do they? I mean. Do you want to go out and acquire a big? You could certainly make a case for it. Question just becomes who is going to be available that can bring you some of that snarl that they are lacking, and obviously that big body and physicality. I mean, hell,
that's what Tristan Thompson was supposed to be. Yeah,
and Thompson, for as bad as Jeff Teague has been, he is, and I was high on that siding. He's been atrocious. Tristan Thompson's not been bad. Tristan Thompson is perfectly fine for what they signed him to be and what they're paying him to do. Tristan Thompson's fine. Teague obviously is a problem, but there are only so many bigs that are going to be available, and we don't know. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a big. I know they'd like a guy with size who can shoot as well, but I mean, hell, like much to your area, like all eyes on Orlando, right? Vooch. I mean, that's the guy that people would love to see here.
Yeah, we've got tons of bigs. We don't have any good guards. We're like the opposite ends of the spectrum here. We got all these 7-footers that just, these big oafs. You bring up a lot of great points. I mean, last thing, we appreciate your time here. Really last couple questions here. Would you see a benefit of going all in for Anthony Davis? I know you guys tried that a couple years ago, but
he's under contract with the Lakers. He's not going anywhere.
What's wrong with the Lakers? They're 3-6 without him.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron can only do so much. I mean, that's a team that doesn't have a whole lot around their 2 studs. But then again, I mean, they didn't last year, and they won the championship. So, it's just a function of having those 2 guys healthy, and they'll be fine. Right now they're managing them as they should be. That team isn't the Celtics. That team, and maybe you put the Nets in this conversation, or the Clippers and teams like that. I mean, they know who they are. They know what they'll be. They don't give a crap about what their seed is at the end of the season. They are playing for the playoffs and playing for championships, and want to make sure they are fully healthy at the point that they get there, and can then go on that 2-month run. And so, I mean, I wouldn't be worried about the Lakers right now.
Adam, last question. What do you make of the Utah Jazz? Are they for real, or are they pretenders?
Can it be both? Here's what I mean. They, I think they are for real in that they play hard and they're fun, they're entertaining, and they're going to make a lot of noise during the regular season. But obviously, if you're wondering, like, can this team win a championship? I don't think so.
They're like the Budenholzer Hawks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think they can have like you think back to that, like Mike Budenholzer 60-win Hawk team a few years ago. Same kind of thing, right? Like no real superstars. All due respect to Donovan Mitchell, like hell of a player, all-star. Maybe he'll be a superstar one day. I don't really put him in that conversation right now. Rudy Gobert either. But these guys are certainly all-stars, very good players in this league, well above average. But, do they have enough as a team, as good as they are defensively, by the way, do they have enough to carry them to a championship, especially in that conference? I don't think so.
Well, Adam, we appreciate your time. Thanks for your time. We definitely would love to have you on again. Thanks again for your time.
Sounds great. Look forward
to it. Thank you, sir. Have a great night. Like and subscribe to the channel, guys. Appreciate it.